Hi, everyone. So, there's a bit of introduction by myself. My name is Orlando de Mauro. I'm product software architect at Flowable, and I'm part of the front-end team based in Valencia. Some useful info about the presentation. At the end of my presentation, we will have some times for Q&A, and there is also a live chat available during the session to engage with the other participants. And of course, each session will be recorded and available after the event. So today we are going to speak about Flowable Forms. The main topics that I will cover will be three. So we will start with an introduction of Flowable Forms. Then I'm going to speak about how we took the expression evaluation to another level with events. And then at the end, before the Q&A, we'll do a small demo of forms. So let's start with the introduction to Flowable Forms. So what is Flowable Forms? Flowable Forms is a powerful declarative form library. Three of the main characteristics of our library is that it is easy to use. It was designed from the ground. We easily install it and use it. It is focused on matters, so it lets you focus on your business, and it will take care of all the other things like form validation, like hide or show a component. And also the last characteristics is that it is powered by React, and this let us extend and customize the form really easily. So here we can see one of the main features of the library. We have a full set of available components out of the box, like wizard input. They are just also simple input text, data input. It is built with performance and bundle size in mind. We have the interactivity that it's through the use of expressions. I will explain later on what expressions are. It is easily configurable using 12-column layout configuration object. And as said, as powered by React, is easily customizable, and we can easily style the form library. And also, I added here the links to our documentation because it is easily embeddable in a React app, in an Angular app, or just in a simple vanilla JS vanilla application. So let's start to speak about some of the main concepts of our Flowable Form library. One of the main concepts is the config file, so the config object, sorry. So it is a 12-column layout definition that we can pass to our form. So here on the left, you can see an example, a simple example of a React application that is rendering our form, and we are passing to it the configuration. And also we have other two properties that we can pass to the form that are, for example, the onChange, that it will be called every time that there is a change of the internal state, like due to a user interaction or due to an expression evaluation internally. And also we can pass another callback that is the outcome preset. What is an outcome? So the outcome in forms are basically the main actions that we have on our forms, like it can be the save, the delete button. So here you can see an example of the configuration object. On the left, you can see the result, the final result, what the form will render. And on the right, you can see the structure of the object that we are passing to the form engine. As you can see, we can define an array of rows, and then we have each columns, 12 columns. And then inside, we can define the layout that can contain other rows and columns. One of the other main concepts of our form engine is the payload. So what is the payload? The payload is basically the the form data state. We can just reuse the payload that is internally in the form. And if we pass the payload as a property, we can use the form as a controlled component. And here we can see an example of a controlled version of our form engine. So on each change, we are going to set back the payload with a new value, and it is the value that we are going to send to the form component. So basically, is the app that is controlling the state of the form engine. One of the other cool feature that we have in our Flowable Form engine is it is empowered by the dev tool. So the dev tool is a tool that is really handy while you're developing with the Flowable Form. And for example, here we can see one of the tab of the dev tool that is the SFS. It is basically we can pass to the form engine a more compacted version of the configuration file. As you can see here, we're not passing anymore an object, but we are passing a different text with a specific rules that make it more compact. And of course, it is editable. And another tab of the dev tool is the components tab. It is really handy and useful when you have long forms, big forms, and you want to see, for example, the state of a specific component. Basically, we render there a list of all the components that are rendered at the same time. And then if the user, if the developer select it, we highlight the component and we render the properties on the right. So the last main concept. So we said that the interaction is done by expression. So, but what is an expression? So a form expression are part of the configuration object, and they are combined with the payload by the form engine, and they result in calculations. Those calculations are used internally to bind the components together and to define specific form behavior. Each expression is defined by using matching double curly brackets. So let's see an example here. So here we are defining a checkbox that is basically a Boolean in our configuration, where we add a label that is a disabled label, and then we add a value. So this value will be stored in a variable called this. The same for another checkbox that we are going to add in our form, and the value of that checkbox will be stored in a variable that is called hit. And then we have a text field that will be visible when the hit variable is false, and the same for the enable when it's false. And it results in this is the final result. As you can see, if the two checkboxes are not selected, the text input is visible and editable. Then if we can disable it, or we can hide it, just checking the checkbox. But of course, other than let the developer define his own expressions, we have also out-of-the-box expressions. They help a lot while implementing or configuring a form. So here we have a few examples. We have the payload expression. So basically, it contains the value of the root path used to the payload. And then we have the form valid. That is a Boolean value that it can be used to check if the form is valid or not. But then we have the FLW functions that are utility functions that are available inside the expressions. So we have a lot of them, but here, for example, on the right, I just added a table of the FLW functions that are related with date. Like we have the now that will render the current time. As we said, one of the other main characteristics of the form are that you are focused on the matter, that the form will handle the validations. So for example, in this example, we have a full name text input that is required. And to make it required, we just add is required equals to true in our configuration file. And then we have a button, the save button, that is enabled only if the form valid built-in expression is true. And as you can see in this example, as the full name is empty, the save button is automatically disabled. But also we let the developer, the user of the developer of the Flowable form to define his own custom validation. So what is a custom validation? A custom validation basically lets you define a specific behavior, and based on that behavior or that value, we can say if the form is valid or not. It is made of two parts. The first part is the expression itself, and the second part is the error message that will be rendered close to the component. For example, in this case, we defined an expression that we return. So we define an expression that will make the input box or whatever is using it not valid when the value of num is not even. So, and in case it's not even, we are going to render this message that is the number must be even. But how we use Flowable Forms in platform? So before showing to you how we use it in platform, I would like to show to you how we model the form. So in design, that is one of our products, we have the form editor. This is a visual editor that let us model our form, and then it will automatically generate the config file that will render to the form engine. Here are a few examples on how we use forms in platform. For example, we use it in a task form, that is this. Then we use also in a work form, for example, and also in an action form. So here you can see in Engage, we have an action to start a new topic inside a conversation. So we have this form. So basically we use in almost everywhere in platform, we use Flowable form. So one of the last main characteristic of the Flowable form is it's powered by React. So this makes it really easy to style. For example, here we have an example of how to style a form. We can use a style component, for example, but we can use also other techniques. Here we are defining a wrapper, and we are overriding these three class with a new color. And then we just render the wrapper passing the configuration that we would pass to the form component. And as you can see here, the result on the right. On the top, we have the default color. And on the bottom, we have the result that is with the new colors that we defined in the styled component. One other powerful feature that we have is that we can define our custom components. So basically, we can define components that then will be rendered inside the form engine. To do it, we need to follow two steps. The first one is to write the component that will be rendered, and the other step is to let know to the form engine which component we should render based on a specific key. So here on the right, you see a small example, like it's a counter, a click counter. And what we want to achieve is that every time that we click on the component, we render in an external text input double the value of the click that we made. So as we said, to do it, the first step is to create the component. So here you can see an example of the component that we created. It's just a simple click counter where every time that the user click on the div, we just set the count +1. And then we have a use effect. So if you are not familiar with use effect, so it's just a simple function that is called every time that, in this specific case, every time that count change. So every time that a dependency into the dependency array change, it will be recalled, it will be called. So in this specific case, every time that the user click on the div, we increase the count of 1, and then we call the onChange function, that is the onChange that is received from the form engine, with count multiplied per 2. And after that, we need to let the form know which components should render based on which key. So to do it, for example, we want to render in our form engine, as we showed before, we want to render an text input and our custom component. So to do it, we just add it into the configuration file, and we define our new component with an ID, a label, and a type. So the type is the key that then will be used to define the map that we pass to the component's property, to our forms component. So here we are going to say to the form component, every time that you see the key click counter, you need to render our custom component. So and this will render what I showed to you before, the click counter. So, so the next topic that I would like to speak about is how we took expression evaluation to another level using events. So as we said, the expressions are what it is used to do calculations internally in the form engine. That means that the form engine is taking the configuration file, is taking the payload, is doing the calculation, and then based on that calculation is rendering the values and the component on the UI. But of course, to do it, every time that something changes, every time there is a user interaction, for example, we need to reevaluate all the expression that we have. And this can lead to some not desired behavior. So for example, in this case, let's, for example, assume that we have 4 text inputs, the first one with the first name variable, the second one with the last name, the third one that is a combination of first name and last name, and then the last one is just the birth date, text input or date component. Every time that the user will interact or will change the first name, we are going to see that the 4 expressions will be reevaluated. So, but of course, this is not, this can lead to performance issue, even if we have some internal calculation to stop unused recalculation. But of course, if it's not properly modeled, that can lead to performance issues. So the desired result is that every time that the user changes the first name, only the first name and the first name plus last name expression should be reevaluated. So not all the expressions should be reevaluated. So to do it, what we implemented in 3.12 is an event-based configuration. So basically we can pass to the form engine a configuration with some event-driven configuration that will let you only reevaluate only the involved expression, not all the expression of the configuration. So to do it, we can get the same example of before. So we can define 2 callback on the first 2 inputs with the onChange, and then we are going to say to the form engine, okay, every time that this onChange function is called, evaluate first name plus last name and store it in the result variable, the result expression. This will let us just re-render first name and the for example, when only the first name change. So if we will change the birth name, it won't change, it won't re-evaluate the result and all the other expression. So as said, in 3.12, we introduced this new event-based expression evaluation. At the moment, we only support input component change on input change that will reevaluate the expression every time that a value change. we have the before form load expression evaluation that it will run an expression evaluation only before that the form is rendered. And we have the after form load evaluation. This will evaluate the expression only once the form has been rendered. And what next? So in the next releases, we are going to implement a new functionality based on event that will let us trigger, for example, REST call based on events. But of course, any suggestion on how we should improve the event API, it's more than welcome. You can reach out to us by email or by the forum. So let's see it in action. So let me switch to our forward design. So to see it in action, first of all, I will just model a simple app with our design tool. So I'm creating a new app, then I'm adding a new model. In this case is a page. First page. And then it will just bring us to the form editor, to the form editor. So let's say I want to add a new text input. We are going to follow more or less the same example of the slide. I'm going to store it in the first name, then I'm going to add a new text input, last name. Then I'm going to add a result text. So this will be a combination of the first name variable, the last name variable, and also I'm gonna print the flw.now variable to see the real-time change. And then let's add an extra input field that is called random text. So I will use it to show to you the evaluation. So if I publish it now and I go to work, so reloading, as you can see now, we have our app. And as you can see, just take attention of the time here. So every time that I change, I have the combination of my name and the timestamp is changing. And this is what, I mean, this is the desired behavior, but even when I change something here, as you can see, the timestamp is changing. So this is not a desired behavior. So how we can fix it or improve it? So we can use, as we said, an event-based expression evaluation. So let me remove this expression from here, and I will use a result variable. Then I will go to my input, and I will define a new event. So an onValue change event. First name. Yeah, sorry. I will add the expression, and I will say that I want to store it in the result variable. I will do the same for the last name. So now we define the two onChange events on the first two inputs. So let's publish it. And I will refresh the page. So now, as you can see, it is not. So if I write, we have it up to date. We have it up to date. But if I write something here, as you can see, the timestamp doesn't change. That means that we are not reevaluating that specific expression. But as said, we added 3 events in 3.12. This is the onChange that I just shown to you. But we also added a new event that is the after form load. So I will show to you an example of it. So just let's define a case list. And I will add an expression for the filter. And I want to say that I want that the filter will be based on an expression. And then if I select the form, and then I can select the event, I can add a new event, let's say after load, form event. And I want just to render the open. I want just to render the open case, and let's see. If I publish it and I go back to my page, as you can see here, we are rendering only one case. But if I go to work and I show all, we have also another work item that is completed. So for this reason, it's not rendered into our application because we set the filter as I want to just show the open case. So, so this is it about the form. But what I want to show to you today as well is our new flowable app view. So as you can see here now, I'm rendering rendering a case page, rendering an app, but we can also embed it. We can also render it as an embedded view. So first of all, I will show to you how we can show it as embedded inside Word. Just it is available just with this URL. As you can see now, the UI has changed. This is the embedded version of that flow app, and it's very useful when you want to create dashboard that brings you to the cases or to the processes. And also, in case of a case list, if we navigate to a case and that specific case as a case view in it, a case view is an embeddable view of a case, we will automatically render it. So as you can see now, I rendered the case view of this specific case. So we can also have the open task and everything. This is all customizable and in design. So, but as I said, I'm showing it to you in work. But it would be also great to show to you how we can easily embed it in a standalone app. So here you can see I just created just a simple React app, and here you can see the code of the app. So we have an icon with just a text. So if I remove it, I can just use one of our packages that is called, for example, Flowable Work Views, and I can use the Flow App component to render an embedded version of our Flow App view. And to do it, I need to add an ID. So let's copy the ID from here. So if I go back, so this is the ID of my Flow App. And I save it here. Then if I save now, here I should see it's auto refreshing. That's not refreshing. So it's refreshing page, yeah. So as you can see now, we have an embedded version of our Flow App, and here's where we can navigate to the case view in an embedded view. There are also other, There are also other features that we can use. For example, we can just say to the embedded view that we want to show the login, and we save and go back. So if we refresh the page, now the login page will be rendered. We go, if I'm not, it's not, sorry, it's not getting the update. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, but yeah, we have few properties that we can send to the. Yeah, sorry, yeah, I'm having an issue with the auto reload, but yeah, basically that's it from my side. We can now move on to the questions.
Thanks a lot, Orlando. So we will now move into the Q&A part. So if people have any questions, then you can use the Q&A section to add a question, and then we will see it coming in. So one of the questions was, you talked about the form payload, but if you work with that in Flowable Work, for example, and you show a task form, how does that work? So how is that payload coming in?
So you mean, yeah, because it is handled by our components in our front end work part, and then we handle it and we just send it as a controlled component to forms, to Flowable Forms.
Yeah, I think the question is mainly you have the form model, but then also the form payload, the variables. But how are they shared with the form itself? Is there a REST call happening to get them, or yeah, how does that work?
Okay, yeah, sorry, yeah. So yeah, we basically, when we render the form, we fetch the configuration of the payload that was stored to the backend, and then based on those two objects, we render the form, our Flowable Forms. Yeah, of course, we need to fetch first data that were stored in work.
Okay, cool, thank you. So you were showing that you can also build your own form component. So you touched a bit upon how to do that, but how would you implement that when you would use that in Flowable Work, for example? How would you make such a custom form component available in our Flowable Work application?
Yeah, so in our Flowable Form application, we can customize. We have a custom JS and custom CSS file that can be deployed together with the app. And there in the custom JS file, we can customize a lot of sections of our work UI. And one of the sections is indeed define the form component. So basically, we can create the component and define the form components map, and with the custom JS file that will be then fetched by the work application, we are going to render that specific component. Okay,
cool. You talked a bit about forms and pages. So what is the difference between a form and a page in Flowable Work?
Yeah, so a page basically it's basically a view that you can customize and you can use. For example, in our case, what I've shown that is the embedded version. I've shown the case view, and it is customizable by the final based on the needs. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So in the form design, there's also an option to add pie charts and bar charts, so the charting capabilities. Which framework is used to implement those charting components?
Yes, we use ReactJS, and we use it. And also, for example, in a case page, it's really useful when you want to create dashboards to use those charts, and it's really useful. And yeah.
Nice. Another question that came in. So that's talking a bit more about the different events that we are supporting for this new form model events capability. And the question is, are there events planned like on Leaf, on Hoover, at things like that?
Yeah, well, at the moment, I think that the first step will be to implement the REST call event, so to make the REST call when on the event that we already have. But then maybe we are gonna implement new change events. And as I said during my presentation, any suggestions, it's more than welcome. They can reach out to us. But yes, maybe on Hover, maybe on Leaf can be something that would be really useful.
Yeah. So I'm reading the questions while they are coming in. So there's a question, do forms have conditional question capabilities, skip questions 5 to 10 if the answer is to question 4 is male, for example? So yeah, conditional logic, I think.
Yeah, we have it, you know.
Yeah, I think the way it's supported, it's with, yeah, for example, visible expressions, right? That you can say only show it when the value of this question is equal to male or female or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's what we've shown as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it for the questions. So I want to thank you very much, Orlando, for the great presentation. So if there are any more questions about the forms integration, the forms capabilities, then you can still ask questions on the component that we have on the website, and we will answer them at a later point for sure. So just keep on coming with those questions. And for now, yeah, thanks a lot, and we will now go into a pause until the next presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.